there are two additional items that we are looking to add this evening, which are two proclamations, the Americans with Disabilities Act 30th anniversary, as well as July is National Parks and Recreation Month. If someone can make that motion for me, please.
I move we add those two items to the awards.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Mackey, seconded by Councilor Camillo. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to the awards and proclamations. The first one in our packet that was included is the proclamation honoring Michael Morgan, who is leaving our police department and is going to be taking another job with the town, which I'm pleased that he's staying in town for us. So I would like to go ahead and read that proclamation into the record. I don't believe he's joining us this evening, but I'm just going to check our attendance really quickly.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. Whereas Michael Morgan was hired as a police officer for the town of Newington in August 3rd, 1998, and whereas Officer Morgan was appointed to emergency response team in June 2001 through July 2011, and whereas Officer Morgan was appointed to field training officer in June 2001, and whereas Officer Morgan was appointed to Youth Adult Council in November 2000, and whereas Officer Mike Morgan was appointed Detective, Criminal, and Youth Investigator in September 2003, and whereas Officer Morgan was appointed Temporary SRO and Youth Adult Council in December 2005, as well as promoted to Sergeant in the Patrol Division February 2006, and whereas Sergeant Morgan transferred to administration in May 2008, then transferred to support services in February 2009. And whereas Sergeant Morgan was promoted to Lieutenant in the Patrol Division September 2010. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan was appointed to Support Services and Patrol in April 2012. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan was appointed to Detective Division in October 2012. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan was appointed Senior Firearms Instructor in August 2013. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan was appointed to Patrol Division in September 2018. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan received letters of recognition in September 1999 and 2001. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan received an Outstanding Performance Award for Arrest Investigation of the Month in June 2002, as well as the Distinguished Services Award in February 2006. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan received a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Central Connecticut State University in August 2011. Also, he attended the Federal Bureau of Investigation New England Law Enforcement Executive Development Seminar in February 2013. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan received commendation letters from surrounding police departments, including West Hartford, Vernon, South Windsor, Glastonbury, Bloomfield, Guilford, New Britain, and the New Jersey Critical Incident Stress Management Team. And whereas Lieutenant Morgan received commendation letters recognizing his outstanding performance, and whereas Lieutenant Morgan received various letters and thank you notes of appreciation from residents and citizens. And now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, on behalf of the Newington Town Council, hereby recognizes and extends its sincere appreciation to Lieutenant Michael Morgan for his professional service and dedication to the town, and wishes him the best in his retirement. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 26th day of June, 2020. Beth Del Buono, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, I will open it up now. We want to do comments on this one before we move on to the next one. Yes, Councilor Badraco.
Yes, I'd like to I don't know, just give my appreciation for the many years that Lieutenant Morgan, of his tireless and dedicated service to the people of Newington. I believe he handled his job with competence and integrity, And in my estimation, he represented one of the finest of Newington's finest. And I wish him best wishes in his new endeavor, but I'm glad to know that he'll still be here in Newington, although in somewhat of a different capacity, but he still will be working for the safety and well-being, and this time for some of our younger residents. So, you know, it's a bittersweet situation, but I do want to thank him for all his years of service, and I'm sure he's going to do well in his new job.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Budrako. Councillor Menke?
I'd just like to echo that. I don't remember having a proclamation with this many whereases before. But it does show the breadth of his career and the dedication to his career and to the town to continue improving his skills and his ability to serve the town. I wish him well in his retirement and all the best luck. And again, I'm glad he's staying in town, just helping us in another capacity, but still be part of our community.
Thank you, Councillor Menke. Councillor Camillo?
I agree with all of you. I've known Mike his whole life, and I just want to say thank you, Michael Morgan.
Any other council comment? Councillor Nagel?
I would like to add my voice also to the appreciation of all the work that Mr. Morgan has done over his period of time in the in the Newington Police Department. It seems like, well, New Britain even was one of the police departments that commended him for his outstanding work. So we will miss him here, but we won't miss him because I realize he's still going to be here in town and using his abilities to help protect the town of Newington. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. All right. Okay. I believe we need a second to the resolution. I apologize for that. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Menke. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Lieutenant Morgan. I am so pleased to have known you as a Newington police officer. You have always treated me with the utmost professionalism in every capacity. You are an outstanding officer, as all the whereases can certainly attest to. And I'm so pleased that you're staying in the town of Newington to continue to serve our community. And just thank you for everything you've done. All right, we will move on to our next proclamation. So I will move on. It is the Americans with Disabilities Act 30th anniversary. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was signed into law 30 years ago on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush, and whereas Newington, Connecticut affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons living with disabilities as set forth for the state of Connecticut and as embodied in the ADA, the laws of the state of Connecticut and ordinances of Newington, Connecticut. And whereas the ADA has transformed the lives of the more than 61 million American people living with disabilities, and whereas the ADA has promoted equal access to employment, government services, public accommodations, commercial facilities, and public transportation, and whereas the ADA has prohibited discrimination against people living with disabilities, and whereas the ADA has guaranteed that people living with disabilities have the same opportunities as everyone else to participate in the mainstream of American life. And whereas the ADA has sought to educate the general public about accommodating persons living with a disability. And whereas numerous organizations in Newington, Connecticut work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Newington Town Council renew our commitment to empowering Americans with disabilities through equal access so they can achieve their full potential and have every opportunity to realize the American dream, while we hereby extend greetings and best wishes to all observing July 26, 2020 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 14th day of July, 2020, signed by myself, Beth Del Buno, Mayor. Okay, we'll open it up. Actually, is there a second to that one?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Mankey, and we'll open it for discussion. All right, seeing none, I'll just say I'm really pleased to see that we are continuing to affirm our dedication to the ADA Act and to guarantee that our residents are all treated with equal access in every way. And I'm pleased that we continue to do this annually and make sure that we are paying attention to this act and giving it its due justice. That being said, I don't see any other hands up. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Let me skip on to the next one. All right. So July is National Parks and Recreations Month, and we have a proclamation to honor that. And I'm looking to see, just making sure Mr. DeMayo is not in the mix tonight. I don't see him as a participant. Okay. I will go ahead and read this into the record. Whereas the Newington Parks and Recreation Department was founded in 1956 with the goal to make Newington a better place to live, work, and play. And whereas July is deemed National Parks and Recreation Month by the National Recreation and Parks Association. And whereas the Newington Parks and Recreation Department touches the lives of every single one of Newington's 30,000 residents throughout their lifetime through programs, events, grounds maintenance, parks, and so much more. And whereas our mission is to bring business, education, and social services together to provide the best accessible programs, parks, facilities, and services to all people. And whereas the Newington Parks and Recreation Department has over 1,000 programs to bring to Newington residents each year that garner over 8,000 registrations. And whereas the department brings residents countless events throughout the year and has been awarded the very prestigious Program of Merit Award for their two largest events, the Life Be In It Extravaganza and Motorcycle Madness by the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association. And whereas the Recreation Division accommodates over 46,000 visits annually to the Mortensen Community Center. And whereas the department has forged essential public-private partnerships with numerous organizations and businesses in Newington, Connecticut, and surrounding towns that help to make our events and programming possible. Now, the Town Council recognizes the vital role that Parks and Recreation plays in their local communities and joins with every resident of the great town of Newington to celebrate the outstanding Parks and Recreation Department's accessible programs and facilities. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 14th day of July 2020, signed by myself, Beth Del Buno, Mayor.
Second.
Second by Councilor Canaro. Thank you. I'll open it up for discussion. Councilor Bedrejko.
Yes, I didn't realize that the program started in 1956, but I personally, growing up in Newington, have many fond memories of the programs. I remember, when Bob Stanley we were very lucky, to have had some very good Parks and Recreation directors. The playground parades, Learn to Swim, and this tradition of breadth of programming and inclusiveness of programming has been carried on by our current Parks and Rec director, Mr. DeMayo. So Newington can be proud of our department and being part of an important service offered by the town.
Well said. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bedrejko. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. I just want to, add on to those comments. I mean, my kids participated in all the park and rec programs. I'm sorry to say that I did too, all those years ago. But yeah, it's a good program. I think it is a good thing for the town. And let's see it continue until 2056.
Great, thank you. Councilor Mankey.
I would just add to that, I think our Parks and Rec department is outstanding, and it does a great job of bringing the community together and providing services for our community for all ages. And I would just congratulate them on this Parks and Rec month.
Great, thank you, Councilor Mankey. Any other council comment?
How do I unmute?
Okay, I'll move on and just say congratulations to the Newington Department of Recreation, Parks and Recreation. I think it was apropos that a good portion of their resolution also acknowledges their accessibility to all residents, given that we just celebrated as well the ADA Act. And I know that Mr. DeMeo strives always to make sure that our programs and facilities are as accessible as we can make them. And moving forward, there's a continued promise to work on that and make sure that that continues. So I'm really pleased to honor the Newington Parks and Recreation Department, and they do an outstanding job always. And they really are just a shining star for our community. So thank you, Newington Parks and Rec. Okay. I believe that's all the proclamations. Boy, we go for months without a proclamation, and then we have to tonight. So that's kind of nice. That's a nice way to celebrate. We will move on now to public participation. So any member of the public may participate. If you are participating in the Zoom app, you can use the raise hand function in the attendees window. And if you are calling in by telephone, you may use the *9 function to raise your hand and be recognized. I'll just give it one moment to see if anybody chooses to use that function. All right, I don't see anyone with their hand raised, so we will move on. Is there any email correspondence this evening? James, are you there? Did you get any emails?
I had nothing that was supplied to me, no.
Okay. Thank you. So we will move on to remarks by counselors on public participation. There was none, so we will continue on to
Okay.
consideration of old business. The first item is health update, COVID-19. I believe that's you, Mr. Chapman.
Yes, well, as you all know, the COVID-19 seems to be very active in most of the country right now. Connecticut is one of the few states that have a very low infection rate. It's sort of, I believe, the calm before the storm, but I hopefully am wrong on that. But we are continuing to operate on a limited basis with the town buildings being closed. We still are under our emergency declaration, and we're preparing the new building, the new town hall, with the glass that needs to be up for protection of our employees and of the general public. So when the new town hall does officially open, that protection will be in place. Something that's nice about that is that it hopefully will be all reimbursed from through the FEMA program. To date, again, we've had no employees report that they've been infected, and we continue to have some employees working at home. More and more are coming in at this point, but we'll have to see how things go. It's just all up in the air right now until we know for sure which way we're going, and depending on which newscast you watch, you have a different view of things. So, but we're continuing to protect the public and the employees.
Wonderful. Any questions for Mr. Chapman?
You want to raise your hand, you can do that.
Okay.
Raise your hand.
Okay. Counselor Bedrejko.
Yes, Keith. Initially, Newington's burgeoning or blossoming of infected cases was from some of our group facilities and the long-term care residential communities. I was wondering if you're keeping a handle on what the status is of those particular facilities.
Yeah, there is a report that I look at every day. There is still activity at those homes, deaths still are occurring, but on a very much more limited basis. So right now, I think the various assisted living areas and so forth are in good control of the situation. But there's a lot of potential with people coming in and out of Connecticut, and if they go to visit somebody at one of those homes, that could start the whole thing over again. So at this point, yeah, there is a sharp reduction in the activity level, but there's still some activity going on, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other council comment or question? Councilor Nagel?
Yes, Keith, I would like to know if you've heard anything from the Board of Ed or the Superintendent of Schools in regards to her employees. And indeed, are there any new specifics concerning what many parents are concerned about, the opening of school or not?
The most recent discussion I've had with the superintendent is that she is preparing for school to be open. She's also preparing for school to be closed and some type of a mix. It is recognized, I think that there was a survey done of a number of parents that have indicated that they are not comfortable sending their children to school this year unless there's a vaccine. So the superintendent's faced with multiple challenges based upon the criteria that's been outlined by the governor's office and how school opening is to be handled, and how the school department is to assure that the cleanliness and the disinfectant of the classrooms, the buses, the cafeteria, all areas within the schools are clean. That requires after every bus ride, we'll say, or, you know, I'm not sure how she's going to handle the high school kids going on the buses, and then the middle school kids going on the same buses, and then the elementary kids going on the same buses. I'm not sure whether she's worked out that yet. But I know that she's planning all possible scenarios, and it's not an easy task, because I don't think she's going to really know until maybe a couple of weeks before school starts whether she goes in one direction or the other. So it's a difficult situation.
Do you have any information about the health of the employees on the Board of Ed side? Has she given you any of that input as to how our teachers are doing in terms of COVID, as well as administrative people?
Well, as far as teachers go, they're off for the summer. So I don't know. I haven't heard any reports. As far as the administration and those employees that are working, I've not heard of any cases in the Board of Ed as well as the general government.
Okay, let's hope that's good news. Thank you. We need it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. Our next item on the agenda is Town Hall project update. Mr. Chapman, if you want to start us off, but I know we have Mark from Colliers here as well.
Yes, we're very close to moving in. In fact, the Board of Ed third floor is scheduled to be moving in on Thursday, followed by the second floor early next week, and then finally the first floor. There's still a lot of work to be done. Both the fire marshal and the building official have been over in that building repeatedly over the last couple of days, trying to get all of the code compliance issues done. There was a major successful test of the electrical system and the generator recently, as early as this morning, actually. There still is a certification for the elevator that is required. That is to be done tomorrow. If everything goes right, then I think that other than a few loose ends for the code compliance aspect, the building probably in part can be occupied. There are parts of the building, however, that are not going to be complete, and they will not have the necessary code compliance improvements made. In some respects, having the COVID-19 situation happen at this time is probably a blessing, because we're not going to open up like the gymnasium at this point anyway. But there's quite a bit of work still to be done throughout all the building. And I know that the contractor is scurrying around and the subcontractors are, but I'm somewhat disappointed in the progress that's been made. We've had meetings recently with the chairperson of the Project Building Committee, Joe Harpy. We've had meetings with Joe and with the code compliance individuals, with the IT individuals. So we're trying to get everything done in a very short time, and this week is the go or don't go week. But it looks more promising, we'll say today, than it did Friday. But like I said, the third floor, the school department is scheduled to be moving on Thursday. And that's still up in the air, depending on how the elevator tests go and the certification goes. And then the other remaining issues that both the building inspector and the fire marshal have been, they've made up their punch lists, and they're being worked on as we speak, I guess you could say. So I'm somewhat optimistic, but also very cautious. We may have to delay, and we'll know better, I would say, by tomorrow night, because that elevator's got to be certified. Now, Mark is here along with Paul, our new facilities manager / IT director. I'm not sure who else. I think Joe Harpy may be on, but I don't have the list. So you do, Mayor, I believe. So I would turn over to Mark at this point, and from Colliers, and he can update you as of 2 hours ago, I guess you could say. So Mark, take it away.
Yep, thank you, Keith. Just to piggyback on what Keith was saying, the architect has been in the last 2 weeks doing his punch list and doing his checklist for substantial completion. One of the things that hinges the substantial completion is that elevator. So I would like to say in the construction industry, it's not normal to be scurrying around at the end, getting the odds and ends done, but it happens. Probably more than it should on construction jobs, but it does happen. And that's where they're at now. They have their list from the building official and the fire marshal, and they've got their list from the architect, and they are completing it. So substantial completion, temporary certificate of occupancy is scheduled to be done this week. So that's what they're working on to achieve. As Keith mentioned, there are 2 areas that will not be complete. The gym, and part of the reason for that is the gym equipment, meaning the scoreboards and the bleacher manufacturer. Excuse me. They're out from the Midwest, and this isn't the only project I've had it happen on, but they shut down due to COVID. So they just started back up in May, and 3 times delivery schedules were probably overpromised. They do have the equipment now, and they are in the midst of putting them in. So that is one of the reasons why the gym is lagging. The other is the partitions for the gym, the multi-purpose room in the community center, the town council chambers and the Helen Nelson room, and the partitions for the conference room up on the 2nd floor. That manufacturer shut down due to COVID, and they started back up. Half those partitions are due to ship in mid to late August, and the other rooms are scheduled to ship in mid-September. So they'll once they arrive on site, they will be installed, but those are the 4 areas that are affected due to the partitions. And then the other room that is not going to be done is the Parks and Rec kitchen. There was a late approval for a health hand sink that needed to get moved, and that change delayed them about a week. So they are working through that right now. Temporary, as the town takes over the building, there will be some temporary construction in place. There are 2 areas. There's a temporary sump pit outside the registrar of voters that ties in part of the building and will tie into the rest of the storm drainage system once the existing town hall is demolished, and it'll be tied in this fall. So there's a temporary sump pit there that will need to be protected for occupancy. There's a temporary guardrail on the outside of the gym that is in place, that will need to be in place for the CO. That'll prevent someone walking up and off the grade and into the stairwell next to the gymnasium. I was told today that rail is due in next week, so that'll be put in place. That'll need to be arranged and be put in place when it arrives. And then there, one of the issues with the town hall is, in the drainage, is the roof drains tie into the existing town hall drainage. And there was flooding 2 weeks ago. And part of the solution is to push the rainwater on the roof to the overflow drains. So there's temporary, they hooked up piping to the overflow drains to drain onto Mazzicoli Way, which will take the pressure off of the existing town hall stormwater system. And so that the backup and the flooding into the first floor of the town hall should not occur. As Keith touched upon, the upcoming events are the move-in over the next 2 weeks. And then the construction manager switches from phase 1 to phase 2. So we'll put their temporary measures in place as far as the temporary fencing and erosion and sedimentation control. They will do the abatement of the existing town hall and then demo it. And then after the building is down, they will complete phase 2 by building the parking lot and refinishing the police station. The phase 2 is scheduled to start basically right after the move-in period in August, and it is supposed to run through the end of the year, 30th. And then they have a 2-month window for closeout, and which would be the financial closeout and the paperwork close as far as getting all the operations and maintenance manuals, the training of this everybody, the as-built into the town. There are some issues that have come up that are being actively worked on. The capacity of the generator is one of them, has remained an issue. If you asked us 2 months ago, the design team had the generator at capacity. They did a load test about 2 weeks ago, or actually last week, and they had to add load to it to get the actual load on the generator. So it almost seems like it's under, or it's over designed for the load that's on it. So that is a concern. We're getting the design team to take a look at it and get the answer of if this is what the status of the generator is, as far as being over designed at capacity, or is it over designed and there's much more capacity that we can put on it.
If I may interrupt for a second, Mark, the generator, at least from what I was led to believe when I got here, was to power the basically the entire town hall. However, the only items on that generator are basically the life safety type alarm systems and so forth. The air conditioning system, for an example, and heating system are not on the generator. You would think the size of that generator, you'd have everything on it, but it turns out right now that very little is connected to the generator. And my understanding is that the architect, I guess, takes the position that it was never intended to power the whole building, yet it if you've seen the generator, you have to believe that it was certainly spec'd out to power that whole building, but it doesn't power very much at all. So that's an issue that I think has to be addressed, and we want that building to be fully operational during a long shutdown of power, either in the winter or the summer. Right now, if power was not in that building and we had full occupation, occupying employees and visitors, that building would not have any air conditioning right now, and we'd probably not be able to operate. And the same would be true when it's 10 degrees out. So sorry to interrupt you, Mark. Go ahead.
Not a problem. Let me catch my breath. Some of the other issues are the operation of the flagpoles. They're mounted on the side of the building. There's a change order in place to illuminate the flags as they're on the building, but if the flags need to be lowered to half staff, the town at this point does not know how to do that. I have asked the architect on that, and I guess it's a matter of where the cleat. So the town will need to be trained on it and shown how to operate them. As long as it can be done, they'll have to train the town on how to operate them. It's difficult for a new building on a system that the user is not aware of how to operate it, but they tell me it can be done and operated from, so we'll let them show us. Grade change at the multipurpose room. As you come out of the southeast corner of the gym or down Mazzicoli Way and head towards Garfield Street, the grade at the multipurpose room, or the arts and crafts room is a little bit steep. They're going to put some temporary measures in place till the turf is established, but I think the town should take a look at least putting a fence up there to keep people from falling down that hill or rolling down that hill accidentally. There is a question that I'm working through with the architect on the handicap egress out of the gymnasium, and specifically that southeast corner. So that was brought up to them, and they are working on that.
Mark, if I could interrupt again.
Yes.
What you will find when you take the tour of the building is that the gymnasium has the ability to be divided with a portable wall system. So you could have two activities going on. There's bleachers on both sides of the wall, we'll say, that would seat, we'll say 500 on each side. Depending on if there were an emergency of some type in the building, there is a possibility that the only easy way out of the building would be to exit in the far southeast side. The problem with that is there's about a 15-step incline that you have to traverse to get away from the building. So you walk out of the building or run out of the building, and you immediately are facing a stairway that's taller than you, that you would have to climb. Now, the problem that we see is that if there's disabled people or strollers or elderly, and that exit becomes the primary exit, common sense, I think, says that it's not feasible to expect that 500 people or more could exit that building safely. Now, we talked to our code compliant people, and apparently there's no code that addresses this issue, but logically, I have real concerns with the public safety director of people being trapped or trampled in that particular area if there were a bad situation on the western part of the gymnasium. So when we take the tour, you'll get a better understanding, but I just want you to know, don't be surprised what you see over there, because it's unusual to say the least. Go ahead, Mark.
Yep. At various elevations, there is some there's cast stone, which is a soft, well, it's a cast stone material. So it's a cementitious material. And there are, on various locations around the building, there are cracks that have developed in the cast stone from openings up to the roof line. The manufacturer of the cast stone has been out there. There is, if it has not been submitted already, there's a change order proposal to cut in control joints for these cast stone at these locations to relieve the pressure on these stones and to dress up these cracks. So that is one of the items that will need to be addressed. There is no vestibule at the human services entrance. At the entrances for the town hall, and there's an outer door and then an inner door. It's an interlock to keep the the cold air of the building in the building, or the hot air in the building. Human services is a high use door, and there is no vestibule there. One of the other concerns that was brought up is on the above human services, what they call the connector between town hall and the gymnasium. There are mechanical units on top of that roof, and there are mechanical units on top of the community center roof that can be easily seen from the library parking lot. There is no roof screening for those mechanical units on top of town hall. There is no system like what's on top of town hall to screen the units on the connector and the community center.
Let me interrupt you again, Mark. If when you're doing an inspection on the outside of the building, and I questioned this at the time, the screening that was installed was on the top floor or the third floor roof. Realistically, the only people or the only site you could have of the air conditioning units or whatever else is up there, because I've never seen anything from the ground. That's all been covered up. The only way you could see it is if you were flying in an airplane or a helicopter or you were a bird. However, the other two areas that Mark just mentioned are readily in sight if you're driving or walking along Garfield, or if you're coming out of the library. And when the new parking lot is done, you will be able to see from the front of the town hall on the two lower roofs, the air conditioning units and other appliances so we spent over 300,000 on the shielding up on the top floor that you couldn't see anything, but yet there's no screening on the lower roof that will be seen by everybody. So again, I don't know how that came about. It was done, decisions were made before I got here. But it is, I mean, you're spending all this money on the building and you're going to look at it and say, it looks like a factory in some cases. So just to point that out as you take a tour of the building. Mark?
Yep. And then the last item I got is there are various locations around the building that the wireless access points exterior of the building and the security cameras on the exterior of the building are, in the opinion of people in town hall, are in the wrong locations for what the intent of them are supposed to be. So, or what the future use of it is going to be. So there are cameras and there are access points underneath canopies where I guess the town hall uses building sidearms to do this, to gain the access on the side of the building instead of underneath. So this is an issue or an item that needs to be brought up also.
Now, let me just interrupt again. This has been brought up by our staff repeatedly, at least since I've been here. And the work just continued on, even though you have in one particular location, a camera, security camera that you could reach up and pull off the side of the building right now without a ladder. They're not aimed in the right direction. The wiring now is going to have to be moved somehow through wire mold or whatever, so it's not going to look good. And meanwhile, you're going to have holes that have to be patched that have wires extending out of them right now. And this was all brought up, but it was just ignored because the plans called for them to be in a certain place, and that's the way it is. And again, it's very frustrating when we're trying to make this building a nice building and you end up with flaws already being built into it. Mark?
That was my list of issues and concerns.
Now, the issues that the fire marshal and the building inspector have, you've got copies of. I sent you all copies. A lot of that has already been accomplished, but just as of today, there's new items that are now on the fire marshal's list. And I have requested that they sign off that this building is in fact substantially complete and meets all the codes prior to us moving in there. So we're coming down to the wire here, and I'm supposed to sign off on a substantial completion, which I will not do until my code compliance officers tell me it's safe for us to be moving into that building.
So Councilor Camillo has his hand up, but I know Mr. Boutat is with us as well. So go ahead, Mike, and then we'll let Paul have a say as well.
Mark, back in January, you were at our town council meeting and I had asked for a list of errors and omissions. We never saw that. And now you're looking for a CO. I mean, so people could occupy the building, but are they going to be able to do their jobs? You got a generator that's undersized.
It's oversized, if anything, Mike.
Oversized.
It's
Oversized. Okay.
But
So-
it's not hooked up much at all.
Okay. The security cameras, egress, we've got all these problems. And you're our representative to work with the contractor and the architect, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you looked at all this stuff before the project started and you could have pointed it out to them, correct?
No, I was brought on at the beginning of construction.
Okay, but you still had to look at the whole project as a whole and say, okay, bring us all back to the table. Joe Harpy, architect, the construction manager, everybody, and sit down. So we're not here today. That's what I'm trying to say. You've got a lot of things left on your punch list. Yes, the building may be almost complete, but we can't work in it.
Well, the plans that they were building to were all signed off and blessed. It might not have been to everybody's liking, or, you know, I don't know how it got to the plans got approved to go out to bid, but the plans that went out to bid are the plans that are being built. There have been changes to them as we've gone along, but these were the approved plans that went out to, you know, for construction.
Right. But as you look at them right from the beginning, you could see there were problems, flaws, and you're representing us.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. And
Correct.
I would think you would have started the process of correcting this.
There are towns, there are buildings that have like wireless access points underneath canopies, or cameras underneath canopies.
Okay. I'm a little worried. Your company is going to work with the Board of Ed for rebuilding Anne Arundel School, and I'm afraid of the product we've got here, what we may get there. So, thank you, Mark. And I would like that list someday.
I have forwarded it on to the town manager and for his distribution.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Paul, are you with us as well? I'd like you to weigh in. I mean, I do have some questions, but I'd like to hear everything first before I go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I'm here tonight. Thanks for having me, and I just wanted to give everyone an update. Most of the items that we covered as far as during our walkthrough, I basically reported as we went along. Today was a little bit of a disappointing day as well. Myself and Keith were walking around the building, and we came into contact with Downs Construction, QA&M, the architect, asked about the wireless access points and the cameras that are on the building and are not located in the right locations, or someone made a change to the locations on their own, didn't clear it with us or didn't ask us our opinion on it. And we were basically told after I had also spoke with an electrician, the electricians were telling their subcontractors to install the cameras where they were at, and that was per the contract, and they needed to have them installed so they can get paid. When we brought that up to the attention of QA&M today, basically we were told that they were issuing the instructions to Downs, and Downs was issuing it out to the electricians to install the cameras regardless of where the locations are, whether they meet our needs or not. And that is because they were contractually obligated to install something at that location. You know, it's sad, but that's what we were told. We kind of walked away from, or at least I walked away from that discussion because it got a little heated. But again, just trying to look out for our interest on here. James, do you have that one photo of the junction box that we can put up on the slide?
You're muted, right, Paul?
Oh, Paul, you're muted.
Yep, sorry. So if you see the photo that James just put up, for an example, during my walkthrough, we heard at some point during the construction project that someone from Downs' team, I believe, drilled through a pipe, resulting in hitting a feeder wire inside one of our rooms. So a feeder wire is a large wire coming out from electrical distribution system and coming into the building through various parts. So during that incident, you know, that basically needed to be repaired, they received a price from the electrician on properly repairing it, meaning pulling the wire all the way out from one location and bringing it back up to where it connected. Apparently that price was something that, you know, the construction folks did not want to deal with or pay. So their fix for that was to go ahead and cut out one of the walls that we have identified for future use and growth in the town hall and put a junction box inside that particular location, and we have to live with it. They look at that as a acceptable construction repair.
Okay.
You know, so it's been frustrating to try to make good on in some of the areas. We do have some things that we've pointed out, but if the documents, the construction folks build according to plans, and whatever's on paper is how they proceed. So if the architect, the designers do not make a change to a drawing, then we do not see anything, you know, changed on the ground floor. And that's what we've been dealing with right now. You know, some design issues. The generator, as the town manager spoke to, I was there during that initial test with whatever's connected on here right now. There are a few AC units that are on there. As far as, you know, but not everything is on there as far as air conditioning. We probably have less than 25% of the building that is connected to the generator. And again, it's mostly life safety. The data rooms were added because they weren't originally on there, which is, you know, a little bit bizarre for, you know, commercial grade building, government building, not putting your telecommunications rooms on a generator, but we did get that addressed earlier on. However, during that generator test, we ended up having about 20 amps, according to the generator technician that was doing the test, the load on the generator. So he had to put 750 plus amps of a load on to the generator that has a 900 amp capacity. So that's where we're at. So we have a really, really large generator. It started out as a 400 for a model size, and it's at a 600. So somewhere along the lines, it was upsized. We've been told that we're at 85% capacity on that particular generator. And yet the tests show that we're nowhere near that. They're going to come back and tell us like, oh, you can go ahead and add things to the generator. However, there's a significant cost. So the electricians tell us that in order for us to add anything to the distribution panels, we would have to pull feeder wires take a standard panel and then convert that over, connect it into the electrical distribution and the transfer switches so that it would be on generator power. But that's going to be at a cost to us, to where, you know, we still wonder and we still have outstanding questions on what was the load of the building, the dry load, meaning that not taking into account anything that we've added, just what would the size of the generator be, what would be needed in order to support the building at 100%. We've never received that answer. We've asked the design team, both QA&M, DTC, subcontractors that were utilized throughout the project. And again, the biggest issue on the site, I think, from every vendor that I hear or a construction person is the electrical. The electrical has been basically changes, you know, daily or in drawings that are not up to current to support the project. It's been changed, you know, ongoing every single day, every single week, always chasing drawings and making changes.
So again, Paul, if you're chasing drawings, that would be more the design team than the electricians, correct?
Correct. I think a lot of this is design. You basically had QA&M hired DTC. DTC did the electrical design. They went through several people to do the electrical design. One of the individuals that they had hired when we initially got involved, just quickly, we had 2 days to put our data schematics together. Told me when he submitted the electrical drawings, he goes, I'm telling you right now, he goes, these drawings are not even close to being complete. They're probably not even 50% complete, yet they went out to construction drawings and they were issued. They were signed off, they were passed along, and you know, that person, after those drawings came out, they released them, and then they started hiring other people as needed in order to fill the electrical engineer slot.
Councilor Donahue, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, is this a communications feeder wire that they cut through?
Wouldn't be communication, it's actual electrical wire. So going from the main electrical room upstairs and working its way to a panel or somewhere within the building, at which time it was, you know, a penetration, a drill went through, nicked a wire, they had to make a repair, and that was the repair that was made instead of pulling the wire all the way through and giving us a building that's whole. That is considered an acceptable repair.
Because code states that you can't hide a junction box.
Correct. It's not hidden. It's visible right there on the wall, and that's what we're showing you. But we lose the ability to make use of that room however we see fit, right? They may look at that and say, oh, that's an acceptable repair. It is a junction box. They actually put a junction box inside the room on our wall that would have been used for future electrical panels, possibly door access controls, anything that you would need for data or telecommunications. But we do have a section, you know, we probably lose a third of the wall due to that junction box.
But I mean, it looks like a piece of sheetrock screwed over to plywood.
It is it's a metal electrical box. It's not a piece of drywall. It is a wood backer board with a electrical.
Okay.
Okay. I'm looking at our, oh, go ahead. I'm just so everybody knows, it looks like in our attendees, there's a Chris O. I'm not positive, but that may be Chris O'Neill from the design team, correct? He's from our Cary. So if there are questions for him, we could try to pull him over into the meeting so that he can respond as well. James, I'm not sure if you're able to do that, but I'll go ahead with question and answer for now. Councilor Mink, you go ahead.
I don't really care what kind of, to me, it's not what I expected. This box, a panel box, just sitting on the side of the wall. If this is my house, I'd be pretty upset if they made a mistake and just put a panel box and said, okay, here it is, live with it.
Go higher or lower on the wall.
Any other? Councilor Camillo?
Another thing, you're looking for a CO for most of the building to be completed. But if that was your average homeowner or business in town, we wouldn't get an approval. So please finish the job, Mark.
So
if I may speak just for a moment, I just want to also advise the council that you know, we're moving in. If the TCO is granted, But the condition of the building is not new condition. In some areas, the floors are not been sealed, they're not clean. You know, I'm trying to just give you a heads up when you go over there to look at it. You're going to be somewhat disappointed as I am. This was a very expensive building. It should be perfect, and it's far from that in many respects.
Do we have the right to not move in at this point, or is that going to be cost to us? In other words, if the project's not substantially complete, if by our estimation, and I don't know who can answer this better, Mark or Keith, but so if you don't deem that the project is truly substantially complete in terms of our ability to utilize the building for what it's intended for, so if the gym's not able to be used, that's, you know, that's like almost 2/3 of the building, and we can't utilize that, then at what point are we able to say whether we believe it's substantially complete or not, and what are our grounds moving forward for that?
In my estimation, that's where your town attorney is going to have to get involved, because you know, from a code perspective, if all of the codes are in compliance, then you could move into the building. But the substantial completion is the question that I have, that if we can't use the entire building for its intended use, then in my book, it's not ready. But if we refuse to move in, and if we go to, you know, war on this matter, we run the risk of having to pay $48,000 or $50,000 a month for every month that this is delayed, where the old town hall can't be demolished. It just seems to me that the quality inspection by the architect, because that's who designed this building, is lacking greatly. I don't necessarily find fault with Downs or with Mark, or, you know, the subcontractors are, again, they're working from plans that may or may not be properly drawn. And as Paul points out, you know, Paul is over there trying to do their job for them, and he's being ignored. So we're going to have holes and wires and patches and all that type of thing in a brand new building. It's like buying a car and having the front fender banged up, and well, it's a new car, you know.
So, Mark, can you weigh in on that in terms of the substantially complete piece? Like, you probably have more experience certainly than I do in terms of what is considered substantially complete. When is it not, and what are our grounds for that?
Well, it is beneficial. Make sure I'm not on mute. It is beneficial use. It is the town's prerogative if they want to, they not accept the excluded areas. I would, as Keith said, I would check with the town attorney as far as that, but it is beneficial use as far as, can you operate as the plan's intended?
Okay.
In the areas. With the substantial completion, if they exclude those areas, they will not be allowed in those areas. Those will still be under, you know, they cannot be occupied, and they deem them not substantially complete.
So Mark, let me just ask you then, if there are areas within the building that are not substantially complete, and we have our old building where we use those facilities, like the gymnasium, the 10-day move out and the penalty for not moving quick enough must be negated, correct? Because we can't use parts of the building.
Again, I would check with the attorney, but it would be, you would have use of the other areas. So the warranties would start on those other areas at substantial completion or beneficial use. The warranties on the excluded areas would start when those were deemed substantially complete, or you have your certificate of occupancy.
But if we want to use our gymnasium, we can't, and we use the old one, we can't be penalized because the new gym is not done. So the old gym may be the only resource we have for programming. I can't see how, well, of course, as you point out, and I said earlier, it's a law lawyer opinion issue that we're gonna have to talk to our town attorney about, but
Correct.
you know, it just seems that, I guess if there was more concern shown about the dilemma, maybe the tempers and so forth would be more, we'll say reserved, but I mean, we're getting back into a corner here, and it's no fault of the town whatsoever. I've said enough.
So I'm going to move on. I promise there's council hands up, but just thought, I noticed on Facebook today, someone posted saying that the new town hall had failed inspections. That's not the case, correct? I mean, the inspections that have been conducted have been, we've passed, so to speak, in terms of the code compliance pieces. There's nothing that hasn't passed inspection, even though there are outstanding issues with the building itself. Is that accurate?
That's a fair statement. There are areas that are not complete that wouldn't have passed inspection, but they probably were not inspected. They were looked at as far as, you know, we know this is partially incomplete, but what else should we, you know, as a former construction manager, it would be, we know this area isn't complete. We're not asking to inspect it, but you know, this is where we're at. We know we have to complete this and this item. Is there anything else that we should be looking at?
Okay.
In that respect, you might have failed it, but.
Okay, I'll move on to other council questions. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yes, this is actually just for my own comfort level, going back to the unexpected water issue with the rains that we had recently. And I just want to confirm that you're 99.9% certain it has to do with the drainage, the two buildings feeding into one drainage system, because I remember substantial conversations in the beginning, substantial dialogue regarding concerns with the water table on which the building was going to be built, to the point where we couldn't even, there was substantial debate about whether there should even be a basement in that building because of all the concerns. So are we certain that that is not the issue and the drainage is due to what you guys said it was due to?
The indicators are that the water is backing up through the drains, through the floor drains. So that would lead me to believe that the water could not get out of the building into the stormwater system. And it was it was such a volume of water that it was backing up, and as more water came into the system, it would come back up through the floor drains.
But let me just say that because of the situation, you know, we talk about the use of the building now, the exterior, when you go on your tour, you're going to find these, well, I guess they're 12-inch or 10-inch plastic piping coming off of the building, crossing the sidewalks, going into the Mazzicoli Way pavement. And those pipes will remain until the entire system has been reconnected after the old town hall is demolished. So again, an area where you can't use those sidewalks, somebody could fall right over those pipes and break their neck. So, you know, this is where I believe that research and design failed to address the issue. So we have a building now that, as you will see, you'll see big white pipes coming out of the side of the building, across the grass, across the sidewalk, into the road. And they will remain, I believe, until the new connection's done. Is that correct, Mark?
Correct.
So that could be months. Not good. Now, this is not the first time there's been water in the building. We're told this is at least the second time. And up until this weekend, there's still dampness on the floors that now, I guess they're sealing, and we're not even sure that the sealing material will adhere to the concrete. The gym floor is a raised wood floor. We believe that water was underneath that floor. And depending on how much water was there and how much it penetrated into we'll say the underlayment, it may end up that flooring is going to be warped. And, you know, we don't know if all the water is even out of there at this point. So if it rains heavy again, as it did up in the northeastern part of the state yesterday, we could have this happen again, but now we're all moved in, which is going to create a big problem.
Are there ways for us to check that gym floor in terms of, are there monitors or any way to get under there to see if there's moisture underneath?
That's the question. Maybe Mark, you would know.
They will be drilling for like the badminton holes and all that. There are cores that could be drilled, I would suspect. I mean, you can feel it on the edges of the gym floor that there was moisture out there underneath.
And again, that would be a flaw in the design of the water retention or control of the stormwater. And, you know, that again is not the town's fault, certainly, but we may suffer the consequences.
Paul, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was there during the water event. I recorded it, took photos that particular day. And then following a week after that, we still had Downs Construction had dehumidifiers, commercial dehumidifiers in the building and dryers blowing throughout that building. So even a week after, we still had remnants of water around certain rooms with water still appearing to be wet and seeping. The gymnasium around certain sections of the outer edges had moisture still present on the concrete just by touch. We brought that to everyone's attention. Again, when they brought an outside vendor in, Downs, to test areas, again, this was their outside vendor of choice, and what areas they tested, I'm not sure, but that would be something that Mark might want to follow up on and find out, you know, what areas did they test and what type of tests were performed to ensure that we're not going to have any long-term warranty issues, especially on the gym floor.
Right. Agreed.
That request was made to Downs to give me the reports.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Donahue?
Yeah, I just want to go back to Keith's comment about using the gym. I mean, you're telling us that the new gym won't be ready to use till sometime late August.
Or beyond that.
Beyond. Okay, don't we have a primary coming up and we vote in town hall for the primary in the beginning of August? I don't know the date exactly. So if I can't use the old building and I can't use the new building, where's District 1 going to go?
That's a good question.
I mean, that's part of the following on to what Keith had said. And, you know, Paul and I walked into NCTV and, you know, it's brand new carpet and it was squishy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, there was lots of carpet that was damp. Some of it, I think, was replaced or will be replaced. Some of the other was just dry. So who knows if the adhesive is going to hold on that, and if the colors stay what they're supposed to stay, and it's not good.
Counselor Camillo?
Mark, I got a little heated and didn't mean to try to throw you under the bus here, but I know the old town manager had a lot to do with the lack of communication amongst all of you. And if the building can't be occupied, where are the people in the other half going to go for phase 2 when you start demolition? Because the whole point is to get this mostly done so you can start phase 2, but we don't have any room for them in the new building yet.
Well, they will be done. It has to be done to move the people out.
Right.
To begin phase 2.
The water problem, you may have a mold problem too if it's not completely dry, and people compromise, especially with COVID, you know, we got a lot to think about here. That the building has to be dry and sanitized and everything else when you have water come in like that. So I know some of the carpet was replaced, some wasn't. The gym floor is still wet. If there's mold under that floor and it gets into the ventilation system, you know,
It goes, yeah.
okay, we got a lot to think about. And it goes back to our architect too. I know you said this was done before you got there, but during the project, about 70% complete, there was a couple addendums to it, and it changed things. And that was our town manager changing this whole scope of the building.
Former town manager.
Former town manager, correct.
James, are you on the line? I want to go back to that election question. Would you happen to know what the plan is for the election if there's an issue with not being able to use either location? Are you there?
Yes, I am, Mayor. So the registrars are required to notify me of their polling locations. They are proposed to use the multi-purpose rooms that are adjacent to Garfield Street, as included as part of the community center itself. So they were looking at an entry point through the main Parks and Rec entry in between the kitchen, coming through the multi-purpose room and then back out to allow for social distancing and movement through that building. But that is proposed to be utilized for that election as well as November.
Oh, okay. Thank you for jumping in. I'm glad to hear that there's a plan in place, at least if we do end up in this predicament.
Yeah, we
Thank
do
you,
have that.
James.
You're welcome.
Counselor Menke?
Yeah, I guess I'm just disappointed. One of the reasons we wanted a new town hall because we had water leaks in the old gym and the floor was warped in the old gym. And air quality in the town hall wasn't as good as it could be. And now I'm hearing that we have a potential for a warped gym floor and again, air quality issues because of wet carpet and this water leak. I guess I'm concerned that we spent this money, but we're no farther ahead than we were before, and it looks a little bit nicer and shinier. But we're still going to end up with the same problems. Maybe not today, but somewhere down the road, that's going to affect the quality of the gym floor or the quality of the air. And so I'm a little disappointed to hear that even we're to this late date, things still aren't ready to go. And we're cutting holes in walls to put in a junction box where there's no need to have a junction box.
If I may, just keep in mind also that with this water situation, right now, if we had a storm similar to the one that we had several weeks ago, once we're moved in, the basement will be filled with records. The first floor will have file cabinets with records in them. And depending on how bad the water infiltration becomes, we could have damage to records that are to be kept safe and dry and secure.
Right.
See, we don't know what's going to happen if we get three inches of rain.
Counselor Minor? Are you there, Chris?
Yep, sorry, I didn't want to unmute. Just a couple comments. I guess we can go all the way back to one of the first big issues, and that would be the generator. The generator was designed, and within the specifications and plans, there should be an indication as to what is on for loads for the building. With that size of a generator, being a 600 kW generator, you're talking over 2,100 amps, of which we use 20. So there is definitely an issue with what happened and how that happened. And I believe that's something that should be looked into because there's obviously something extremely wrong. As soon as I heard the size of that generator coming and now hearing that there wasn't anything on it, there is no question there's an issue to it. In terms of the water being a problem, yes, that could happen again. There's no doubt about it. Up until the final separation occurs, that the stormwater discharges to the stream versus into our existing sanitary system as the old town hall did. So we've added all the roof drains from our new 7,200 square foot building. I don't remember the overall footprint of square footage to the system. It's overwhelmed it. And both situations, now that we've identified and looked backwards, have been substantial rains in short period of time caused the system to overwhelm. It's unfortunately, if you talk to NBC, it's not an uncommon event that happens, especially these storms seem to be getting more and more serious in terms of severe, water drops in short periods of time. The only difference now versus before is we've capped off, I want to say about 60 or 70% of the roof drains of the new town hall building and dumped them into the overflows, which lead out to Mazzacoli Way. Unsightly, yes. Hazard, well, if they're blocked off and protected, that would be the only way I would accept leaving them there if we were to open to public. But that would be at least the greater opportunity to not have a future problem with a heavy rain in such a short period of time again. In terms of, a large punch list, with being in the trades for 25 years, that's a very common situation at the end. And working as both an owner's rep as well as a contractor on both sides of the table, I would not accept a building unless it was perfectly cleaned, unmarred, unscathed before I was willing to accept occupancy of it. And that's what I would expect out of anything of this size of a project. So I just, frustration, yes, it's extremely frustrating to have some of these issues brought up. But I think the greater problem that I have is a lot of these issues relay back to the plans. There were drawings on this entire building, and a contractor's job is to build to the plans. That's what the subcontractor does. That's what he's compensated for. If for some reason, and we said this early on in the whole planning of this project, you need to know what you want, how you want it before you go out, because if you start doing change orders, it will get you and cause a substantial increase in cost. Some of these issues, I'm not going to try to even understand how they were missed. I mean, obviously, if there's a camera 6 foot elevation, yeah, that would be an issue. But how did it get there to begin with? And were there written requests for change? Because the process is, if an owner wants to have a change, it needs to go through the owner's project manager, to the construction manager, to the design team. You go ahead and make a change. If you're going to try to do anything verbally or anything other than a paper trail, then this is the type of situation you end up with in the end. And I just would be curious to see if there's anybody that has any knowledge to how some of this stuff got through to where we are basically, a week away from moving in.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any?
Well, if I may, I would, first of all, I think it has to be understood that all of the town staff was directed not to be involved in this project. There was no invitation or direction to have our code compliance people attend project building committee meetings. The facilities manager that was there at the beginning is no longer with us. The town manager that was there is no longer with us. Mark came on board after the plans were already accepted and the project had commenced. So I think Chris is absolutely right. It would be interesting to know who did what or who knew what, when, where. But unfortunately, all of the staff, the entire town staff, other than the facilities director, was basically told to stay away from that project. And the decisions, from what I understand, were made with the town manager, the facilities manager, and the architect. So, I think you have to look at who was there from the beginning and who has responsibility for the end result. And it certainly isn't, I don't believe, Collier's, at least Mark, he came on board. Even the architect, I believe Chris came in after the fact. So all of the original cast of characters are gone except for the architect. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. I guess I have a couple of questions based on some of the comments you made earlier, Mark, when you were going through your presentation. The cracks in the cast stone that you mentioned. So in terms of cost related to that and the change order, who's responsible for those costs? If it wasn't designed properly, or is it that the joints weren't put in? What's the deal with that?
They are submitting a change order. That is unknown at this point. I want to see the backup as far as what they submit. Know that they're there. They know that they've had the manufacturer out there to take a look at them. I want to find out, and then we can assess who's responsible for it from there.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, if the product is cracking, it seems like it would either be a product flaw or a design flaw, one or the other, but certainly not a town issue. So I want to make sure we're, looking at that in terms of the cost and who's going to pay for that. And then also the need for the temporary fencing by the multi-purpose room. How's that going to work? So that's because of the
well, there's a guide rail at the southeastern stair. I would not temporary fence there. It's a steep slope coming off a sidewalk. I would have the town look at it as far as it might not be required by code. It might not be required, it may become a safety issue.
Okay. So again, that seems like a little bit of a design issue as well. If it wasn't considered that could be a dangerous.
Well, if it wasn't considered and brought to attention.
Okay. Yeah. And the generator piece, I'll just echo what everybody else has said. I mean, I sat on that committee all along, and certainly I've been still attending since I became mayor as an ex officio member. And that generator has been brought up so many times that I can't count. And the fact that we're still struggling with that, there's just no excuse for it in terms of, the professionals that are, making these recommendations to us. How are we going to power a building with a generator the size of, half the town of Newington, and only have lights and basic things on it and not the things that we truly need in case of an emergency? It's egregious to think that that's where we're at right now at the end of this project. So I don't know what we're going to do with that if there's such an additional cost to add things, but we can't turn our eye to it either.
Understood. As Paul said, I mean, it's a topic of discussion at each OAC meeting every week. And we've been basically stonewalled, or, it's out of Chris's hands, put it that way. And Chris is the one that attends the meeting. So, the answers haven't been forthcoming. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I see, like I mentioned earlier, there is a Chris O that's on the public side of this meeting. I'm not sure if that's Chris O'Neill or not, but if it is and you wanted to speak, Chris, you can raise your hand and then I'll know it's you. Otherwise, I just don't know who that is in the public side of the meeting. If there's any response to any of the comment.
While you're waiting to see if it's him, I would like to just say that in the short time that I've been here, I've worked closely with the chairperson of the committee, and from what I can gather, it's been pretty frustrating for the committee as well. And I don't understand why, so they are very proud of being that on that committee, yet these problems have been brought up over and over, and every time there's a issue raised, somehow it turns out that it's a change order that costs us money, which requires the committee to approve, and they don't really have much choice. If they don't approve it, it won't get done. So I just want to point out that Joe Harpy and his committee, I think, has done a good job, but they were limited on what they could accomplish.
Yep, agreed, very much so. All right, any other council questions? I think we've done a good job of vetting this topic. I don't see any other hands up. I also don't see that Chris O in the attendees has not put his hand up, so I just don't know if that's someone who wants to participate in the meeting or not without a hand up. So that being said, thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Thank you, Paul, for your input, and for everybody's discussion on the matter. It certainly is a struggle right now, and no doubt we'll get through it, but we have some steps to take for sure. We will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the TPZ referral, sale of Barber Road property adjacent to 49 Fen Road. Mr. Chapman, can you lead us on this one?
I'm going to, basically, this is just a referral. There's not much more to say about it. It'll go over to planning and zoning, and it'll come back to you. There is a public hearing that's required. James, do you have anything else on this?
I would just say leadership decided during agenda setting that we would simply handle this by the TPC referral first. And then once the report comes back to council to decide whether or not to move forward with the public hearing at that point. If the recommendation isn't to move forward with the sale, it doesn't make sense to hold a public hearing on it. So at this point, it's just simply the referral. We'll wait to get that back from them. Hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have that in our hands and we can move forward. We do have a resolution as well to be able to pass for that.
Okay, so because this is sale of town property, we're looking to make an 8-24 referral to TPZ. Could someone raise their hand and let me know they're willing to read this into the record? Councilor Menke?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby directs and authorizes the town manager to submit to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission for its report in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 regarding the proposed sale of property of Barber Road adjacent to 49 Fen Road.
There a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Camillo. Discussion on this? Councilor Camillo, go ahead.
Back when I was on zoning last year, I believe this was brought up and we did an 8-24. And I'm looking in the minutes and hopefully someone else is too.
I'm looking.
And
Was there?
I didn't hear.
it took place probably between midsummer and the fall of last year.
Okay, so you're indicating that if that happened, we don't need to make the referral?
Well, if they can find the information, we'll see.
I can say I don't have a resolution that's listed in our index. It shows that we took action. Now, the TPZ did make a recommendation that the council refer it for their review prior to them moving forward with the application, but the council has not acted on this as of yet.
Okay. So if the TPZ has reviewed it and it's brought back to the council, can we move it forward? Or
Public
just-
hearing.
We'll have to do the public hearing first, and then it would be on our agenda as well.
Okay. Second.
Councilor Mickey, are you there?
Yeah, I would just say we should move forward with the resolution as it stands at this point.
I agree.
Any other council comment or question? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Susan, please.
Counselor Annis,
Yes.
Mim, Counselor Draco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman.
Yes.
Hold the space bar
I
down.
did. I said yes.
Twice.
Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
I took the mute off.
All right. We will move on to the next item, which is the revised town hall site plan. So we were provided with a site plan at our last meeting for our consideration. Just give a quick summary of this again.
James, can you handle this?
Certainly. So as part of a prior 824 referral for the town hall site and the realignment of Mazzacoli Lane, Mazzacoli Way, my apologies, the town needs to abandon a small piece of parcel adjacent to Garfield Street in order to contain the entire new town hall structure within the site. So that map was originally supplied to you at the last meeting. It's on your screen at this moment. That small parcel, we've already taken the 824 referral, referred it, and received it back. This is simply in front of you to approve the map and have that put on permanent record file in the town clerk's vault.
Okay, thank you. Can someone go ahead and read the resolution into the record, please? Who can do that for me? Councilor Nagel, thank you.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby approves the map entitled Abandonment Map prepared for Town of Newington showing portions of Garfield Street and Mazzacoli Way to be abandoned, dated 8/7/2019, prepared by the Bongiovanni Group Incorporated, and directs Keith Chapman, town manager, to have the referenced map placed on file in the town clerk's office.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Menke. Any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote, please, Susan.
Counselor Anist?
Yes.
Braverman?
Yes.
Counselor Budraco?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Menke?
Yes.
Counselor Minor?
Yes.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono?
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Susan. Motion passes 9-0. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is discussion of the 2030 Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD. I would open it up if anyone has any questions or comments on this. I know our intent when we talked about the agenda setting was to keep this on so that we could remind the public of the public hearing, which is scheduled for July 22nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. It will be via Zoom, so you can check the website for that information as well. But do any counselors have any comments, questions, discussion items related to POCD? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So I believe what we're going to do is continue this on our agenda so that after the public hearing, as I mentioned on July 22nd, we can go ahead and then discuss what the public input was and if there's any other questions or things that we'd like to see changed based on public participation at that meeting. Is that accurate? Is everybody in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we're all set. No hands are raised. We will move on to new business. The first item is discussion of CIP committee review. So I'll just start by saying that as we went through the budget this year, we really had some concerns with how the CIP plan has been working in recent years. You know, I believe that it was initially intended to be a true 5-year plan. It has somehow kind of moved away from that over the years, in my opinion. So while we do discuss some projects out, what we're really doing typically is discussing the current upcoming year and then talking about a couple other projects that we need to think about. Where if we wanted to consider it as a 5-year plan and really have a 5-year plan, then each year in theory, we would be adding to it on the 5th year what we want to add. So that being said, it would take a lot of review and a lot of work to make some changes to the current plan and make it work in the way that the council would like it to. And so I would open it up for discussion for ideas. I'm thinking this may be a subcommittee of the council that we look to form. Perhaps the members of the current standing CIP committee that are council members could serve on it, and then could discuss and bring back to the council. But I'll open it up for discussion at this point. Councilor Yannis.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I think most of us on the CIP, the three of us that are on the council, have served on it before. I think we have a good grasp of how it's proceeded over the last couple of years. So I think it would be beneficial if a subcommittee of the current CIP of the council get together, discuss it, bring back some different proposals to the council for discussion as a full body.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yeah, and one thing I'd also like the subcommittee to, I'm sure you will address it because it's been a topic of discussion every year, is not only, the immediate year versus a 5-year plan, but exactly what is included. Is it the overall price, or is it, the yearly payments in terms of, bonding or a layout, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, or is it the whole, so there's just so many questions that seem to have evolved. And what exactly, there really has to be some pretty stringent rules on what is a capital expense, because that's kind of morphed into areas of discussion. And then I would also hope that the model that comes back, because there are some other CIP committees and different departments now. We've got the Board of Ed, we've got Parks and Rec, that it could be used as a template or a model of discussion, so all CIPs can operate pretty much under the same understanding.
Thank you. I neglected to mention in our packets tonight, we did have the original resolution that was used to form the committee back in, I believe it was 2006, if I'm looking at it correctly. And at that time, it stated that the committee was to determine long and short-term needs for capital projects in town and to make recommendations during the budgetary process as to what projects will be funded and in what order. So that was kind of their charge at that point. So we can reconsider that as well. Councilor Nagel?
Yes, as I've been ever since I became the chair of it this year round, I've been saying that it's morphed into something other than what originally was intended, which is partly stated by the resolution that you just pointed out from when it was first put together, and that we need to concentrate on facts as opposed to just discussing. And I know the three of us that are the council members that are on that can very well do that, so that we can make at least some changes that maybe don't require changing the charter to come forth and be able to institute those for this coming year. It's always been a question to me as to what belongs on it, what doesn't. And I do think solidifying and to clarifying and to also determining whatever may be why we have more than one CIP. Why are they separate? And can't they handle some of the things? And also some of the things that are on the present CIP listings over several years seem to be something that can go into managing a budget, as opposed to being put on something which seems to be special projects, as opposed to something that's ongoing year after year after year. And also I think this is an excellent time to really zero in on this, because indeed we are funding, we do have a debt which we haven't had before. I know we can manage it, and we have new large projects that are coming down the line that will be a need to be funded or approved by the town referendum. And we need to clarify what we have here so that those projects which don't go over whatever cap is on the CIP are not brought to us. Granted, they are important. We like to hear them. But by the same token, that is something for somewhere else as opposed to a discussion for a committee that really can't do anything about them. So I'm pleased to see that we're moving in this direction, and we'll look forward to doing it efficiently, not rushed, but doing it efficiently so that we can at least institute some things by the next budget season. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Mankey?
I agree that this is something we should study. Every year I've been in the council, it's always been a question, what's on, what's off. I like Council Annis' idea that the current committee serve as a subcommittee. I would just think we should include the finance director and the town manager as part of that committee, whether they vote or not, but at least part of that committee. But I think because those three people have gone through the process just recently, they might be the best ones to sort of come back with some recommendations to the whole council that we can look at. But there's certainly time we study this, and studying it now before we get into a budget season is important. So I would say we should move forward with this.
Counselor Nagel, did you put your hand back up?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
I forgot what what Councilor Mankey just mentioned, that indeed we do want the input of the town manager and to have those on the town side that are employees to be able to have input, and also to give us some guidance as to what the town manager's vision is to what this may be. And of course, it's up to us on the committee to determine what form we would like it to be more efficient. But indeed, it would be reckless for us not to include and to see what plan or what ideas he has to add to the mix that we may already have or will come up with in the meetings that we have.
Excellent. And I would also encourage the subcommittee to certainly invite the town attorney or use him, to your benefit when you have any questions, in terms of some of those long-term project fund questions. You can certainly access him as well. Is there any other discussion on this? If not, we'll move it to old business for next meeting. Okay. So we'll keep this on the agenda as for next meeting. The next item on our agenda this evening under new business is the STEEP grant application. This was added to the agenda after our last agenda meeting. It was a need that came forward. The governor announced that there will be a new round of STEEP grant money becoming available. And so, Mr. Chapman, do you want to speak to this?
I believe that Craig is on board tonight with us. He was.
Oh, wonderful. I'm sorry, Craig. Hi, Craig.
Hello.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, so the STEEP program. STEEP is an acronym for Small Town Economic Assistance Program. About 20 years ago, the state of Connecticut realized that smaller towns of less than 60,000 who didn't automatically get HUD money for economic development projects were kind of at a disadvantage. So the legislature came up with the STEEP program. And Newington has gotten money from STEEP over the years. A lot of the town center renovation over the past 15 years or so has been funded with STEEP money. But it had been dormant for a couple of years. So, but when the governor announced on Friday that STEEP was back and applications were being accepted from between Monday, the July 13th and August 14th, luckily Newington had a couple of projects on the shelf, which are in your agenda packet. Both of them are economic development projects, which would involve the beautification of a couple of different business districts in Newington. So we can submit one of those applications. I spent the afternoon reading the fine print of the STEEP program for 2020, and one of the rules are the town can only apply for one grant. I also, unfortunately, found that this year, I don't know if it's for the first time, but this year, the maximum grant allowed is $128,205, strange number. And that's not very much money. That's roughly a quarter of what the staff estimated the New Britain Avenue project would cost, and only an eighth of what the Stoddard, Main, and Hartford Avenue project would cost. So that was a bit disappointing to learn. Also, there's now the requirement of a local match. There's no specific amount that the match has to be, but since the STEEP grant program has always been competitive, presumably a competitive grant is a grant where the town has committed some of its own money. And I can't tell you how much, 5%, 10%, I think the more a town is willing to invest itself, accumulates it more points towards being one of the successful winners in the process. But that's the background. Now, this took an interesting turn today. We got an email from Representative Turco telling us that a grant application that we had given him a year and a half ago, back in February of 2019, to do some more work in the town center on Constance Lee towards the end and possibly Lowry Place, had suddenly gotten some momentum and in fact is on the agenda for the bond commission's meeting next week. In fact, Rep. Turco just a couple hours ago released the agenda. I just looked at it an hour ago. And in fact, Newington is on the agenda to get a $500,000 grant to do some more work in the town center. Now, I exchanged emails with Representative Turco this afternoon, and he's confident that he can persuade the powers that be to swap what would have been Constance Lee Phase 7 project for one of the projects that you're looking at that are in the agenda package. He'll know within a week or so whether he's successful at that. So I'll stop talking now and answer questions if possible from the council members.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Minor. So if we want to switch that project, what action do we need to take as a council? Is it just a consensus of us on which project to move forward? I believe the application is under the purview of the town manager. Is that correct?
It is under the purview of the town manager, yes.
Okay, so you really are looking basically for a consensus from us, or do you have a recommendation as to which project would make more sense?
Well, the New Britain Avenue project, frankly, I have a soft spot. I think that'd be a great project. And the New Britain Avenue merchants have told me over the years, not that they begrudge town center for the work that we've done, for the money we've invested in town center, but I think there's a sense of, when is it going to be our turn for those merchants? So I think that would be a nice project, the New Britain Avenue project. And it's almost exactly the same amount of money. It's just a little bit less than $500,000.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yeah, when I was looking at both of these projects, the one that stood out to me or weighed a little bit heavier in favor is the New Britain Avenue project. And basically, because I think it could be a nice tie-in with the Robbins and the Maple Hill changes that are going through. We're putting in sidewalks, we're putting in a mini bike path on Robbins there, and somehow or other, I mean, it can kind of come together as more of a complete package, that area of town. So my vote at this point would be in favor of the New Britain Avenue one, and if perhaps we can kind of extend it a little bit more into Maple Avenue to get the bike paths connected to East Robbins, it would be great, or some sidewalks.
Thank you. Councilor Ennis?
Thank you. Of course, my heart's down at this end of town because that's where I live, and this has been neglected since I was probably a little girl. But anyhow, no, I think the New Britain Avenue makes more sense because it does fit the dollar amount. Craig, question on the Started Avenue Main. How come that project is so high?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. The town engineering department put together the cost estimate. I can't say why it's so much more expensive.
Okay. And say we do apply for steep and we put 10% in or 13,000 or whatever. What could be done with that amount of money at this end, at the north end of town?
Well, we would certainly have to scale it back quite a bit to get down to the $128,000.
Right. But could we do it in phases?
Yes. Yes, we could do it that way. I would like to sit down with the town engineer tomorrow. This all happened within the last couple of hours.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. See what his thoughts are on how to pare back either of those projects in a way that makes sense. Both of them are scalable, but it's tricky.
Okay, because I was thinking, because we are going to get that new gas station and convenience store down here, just to kind of make it look. I mean, it would tie it in nice down at this area to get some economic development going down here. And maybe by doing this, the other property owners would spruce up their properties as well. So, I mean, if that's something that we can consider doing and doing it in phases, I think that would be very beneficial.
The other question though is in terms of the matching funds, what we'd have to find out too, what the matching fund piece would look like as well.
Well, I asked the staff person at OPM this afternoon how much we need to kick in, and his answer was there's no dollar amount, but it's a game of points. You get points for different aspects of the project. That's something new. I don't think STEEP was ever a point-based system in the past, and I will try to find out if they're letting us know what the point system is. Sometimes they like to keep that secret. Well, I don't know, but I'll try to find out how many points we would get for putting in 10, 15, 25% of the project of our own money. I'll try to find out.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Camillo?
Maine and Stoddard, I like that. New Britain Ave and Maple Hill, we're already going to do a project at Robbins and Maple Hill, and that could just tie into that. And I think that works a little better, especially for that section of town. And yeah, yes, Stoddard and Maine needs a bit of a facelift, but so does New Britain Ave and Maple Hill. So I tend to go towards Maple Hill and New Britain Ave.
Yeah, I was, when we talked in our caucus about this idea in terms of the two projects, I think it was you, Councilor Bedrejko, that mentioned the idea of continuing, like, you know, we're doing the Robbins Ave project with the bike lanes, and the idea of perhaps having some connectivity or being able to kind of extend that out might be nice as well. So I think I'm leaning more toward the New Britain Ave Maple Hill piece as well. But I like your idea, Councilor Annis, if we can phase that other parcel, then we'd really be kind of attacking both projects. If we can manage to fund both, that would be fantastic. Councilor Nagel?
Yeah, I agree that the Maple Hill Avenue seems to make more sense. Of course, I'm concerned with is the other project that we've already approved and the state is supposedly coming through with funds on Maple Hill and Robbins is going to come to fruition. And is there going to be a tie-in? Given COVID and whatever, I'm somewhat concerned. I'd love to see these things done, but I'm somewhat concerned if the state is going to back it up and follow through with funds to make both of the projects referring to reality.
Councilor Minor?
Thank you. I'd also agree that Maple Avenue and New Britain Avenue is probably a good project to fit in with hopefully the project that was already accepted already. So I would also agree on that.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't see any other counselors' hands up. So Craig, do you feel like you have enough information from us to know where you're heading?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Chapman, you're good with this? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will, do we need to move this on to our next agenda then for any further consideration?
It's not required. The town manager has the authority to submit the application on his own cognizance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, I think the consensus of the council is pretty clear. So if we're all set, then I don't think we need to continue it. If for any reason, certainly Craig or Keith, you feel like we need to take any action in a future meeting, just let us know and we can certainly add it back on. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
The next item on our agenda is discussion of the Transition Academy relocation. I believe that's you, Mr. Chapman.
Yes, it is. The Transition Academy currently is housed over on Middle Street Extension in the part of the parking lot for the senior center, we'll say, well, near the parking lot. A couple of things are making this a difficult decision. The Transition Academy lease with the town ends, I believe, in September or October of this year. However, the school superintendent has indicated that because of the classes that are held within the academy and the conditions that are going to be, we'll say, happening with the demolition of the old town hall, the academy is going to be right up against the old town hall. It's going to be just a walkway, 12-foot wide walkway between the old town hall and where the academy actually is to be housed in the new town hall. There's concerns that with the noise, the vibrations and so forth that are going to be going on with the demolition, the superintendent feels strongly that she does not want to have those students in the new town hall while the demo is going on. So she has opted to pursue keeping them in the 3 trailers over at the senior center through next year or until the demo is done, and then move them over to the new town hall. I indicated to her that, as long as the town is not going to be paying for that, then that would be her choice. She would have to pay for the lease from we'll say October on, as long as she wants it. And then we would remove it whenever she's done with it. So we're going to need to extend the contract, and the payments will come from the Board of Education starting in, I think it's October, and until such time as she's comfortable to move the transition committee or academy over to the new town hall.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Are there any council questions or comments related to this topic? All right, I don't see any. That means you must have covered it pretty well, Mr. Chapman.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is resignations and appointments. I believe we have appointments for the Mill Pond Park Pool Public Building Committee. Do you want to separate or do one motion together? How would you like to handle it, Mr. Councilor Mankey and Councilor Anist?
I think we probably do one all at once.
Tim, you could do it because I'm one of the members.
Fair enough. Mr.
Sure.
Mankey, you're up.
I can do it then. Thank you. Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Mill Pond Park Pool Public Building Committee. Town Council Representative John Donahue, 28 Maple Hill Avenue, Party R, term NTC term. Newington Town Council Rep Carol Annis, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, term is NTC term. Board of Parks and Recreation Representative John J. Patellico, 37 Valley View Drive, Party R, Board of Parks and Recreation term. Board of Parks and Recreation Rep Don Woods, 82 Ivy Lane, Party D, Board of Parks and Recreation term. Public Representative Garrett Havens, 113 Stoddard Avenue, Party R, 7/14/2020 to 1/1/2050. I'm having a little trouble reading my 50. Public Representative John Bashan, 56 Maple Hill Avenue, Party R, term 7/14/2020 to 1/1/2050. Public Representative Philip Knowlton, 44 Cinnamon Road, Party D, term 1/14/2020 to 1/1/2050.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Anist. Is there any discussion on this?
30 years seems like a long time.
I was questioning that too. It just seems a little strange.
Looks a little strange to me, but
The end of the project.
maybe it's just a continuing building. We're just gonna have one building committee just continues, and as one wears out, we build up another one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. Is that how we've done it in the past for building committees like this? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it does look strange. All right, any other question or comment? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Pino,
Yes,
9-0.
thank you. All right, wonderful. We have ourselves a building committee. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is tax refunds, approval of the July 14th, 2020 refunds for an overpayment of taxes. Deputy Mayor Budraco.
Okay, resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $916.97 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the request for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Donahue. Any discussion on this item? It's not much of a list, it's just one. It's not really a list. All right, we'll do roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Pino,
Yes,
9-0.
wonderful, motion passes. We'll move on to minutes of previous meetings. We need a motion to accept the minutes of the June 18th, 2020 special meeting minutes, June 23rd, 2020 regular meeting minutes, and June 30th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Mankey and seconded by Counselor Annis. Any discussion on the minutes? Any corrections or any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor, Counselor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Pino,
Yes,
9-0.
wonderful, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is written and oral communications from the town manager. Mr. Chapman?
Yes, I have nothing to add tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council liaison and committee reports.
Excuse me, I do.
Oh, hold on.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that you all know that there's a COVID testing event that's going to happen in Newington on the 29th of July from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Constitution Square. There's no requirements. You can just go up and get tested. It's a self-administered nasal swab test. No appointment necessary. Just walk up to the tent and you can get tested. Bring your identification and your insurance card. And then the inter-community will call you with the results of your test. And if you're not insured, you still can get tested.
Great. Thank you.
July 29th, 10 to 2.
Wonderful. All right, so next item is council liaison committee reports. Councilor Anist?
Thank you. Last evening, Councilor Camillo, myself, and the other members of the Newington Housing Study Group met. This is our second meeting. The first meeting was kind of a short, kind of like, this is what we're here for. But last evening, it was almost a 2-hour meeting, and we discussed 16 different approaches of how that we might want to consider to try to get us up to the 10%. So we're going to be discussing those more in detail. We sent Glenn Chowder off with a whole bunch of questions that we had regarding each of the approaches. And our next meeting is going to be the third Monday in August. It was I found this meeting to be very productive, very informative. A lot of things to consider, a lot of new ideas to consider, in working with TPZ together with the council. So I think we're going to be able to move forward with some really positive approaches that we can take with affordable housing. And I did emphasize in the meeting last evening that we really need to educate the residents of what affordable housing really is. What is the actual definition? Because I know people get nervous when they hear that word. So I think there's going to be a lot of education, a lot of marketing to try to make the community buy into these different approaches that will be very positive for the town.
Great. Sounds encouraging. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Pedrico?
Yes, just a quick update from the TPZ meeting. They passed a proposed regulation to allow brews and brew pubs in business and industrial zones. That was like the big news for that particular meeting, but also they're going to start looking at the second item of interest is they're going to be looking at chicken regulations in town. Because currently the regulations prohibit chickens on residential properties of less than 5 acres, but the TPZ, the zoning enforcement officer, has been getting notifications that this is, there's more chickens in town than we think there are. And it's a difficult regulation at this point to enforce, although most of the enforcement he does is, just trying to get the neighbors together and work out a solution. But the consensus of TPZ is that they really should look at the regulation overall and perhaps see whether it needs to be amended.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other council liaison or committee reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is public participation. Anyone from the public who's in attendance can participate by either raising their hand in the Zoom application in the participants window, or if you're phoning in, you can do *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. I believe it's Miss Lyons. Let me just click here.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. Good news is I paid my taxes, so for the next 6 months, I'll be speaking out as a taxpayer, as I usually do. But in any case, I've been trying to participate through the Zoom process, and I'm not really into this modern technology, but I'm doing the best I can. I haven't been able to follow everything. I just had a couple of questions, and I'm sure I can get answers from people later on, but I was just surprised to see the cost of Anna Reynolds jumping from 14 million when I first started watching this in the CIP plan to up to 35 million. I just am blown away by that figure. Also with the Mill Pond Park pool project, I'm just curious as a taxpayer who listened to a big presentation about a $19 million reno to Churchill Park because there were so many issues regarding ADA compliance and things like that. I just wonder what's been done to improve the ADA compliance or get it into compliance at Churchill. Before we start another project, can we just make sure that what needs to be done is done at Churchill? The STEEP grants, great things, but I know Craig hasn't been around as long as I have listening to these STEEP grants, and he's much more versed in them than I, but I've watched the municipal parking lot project, the Market Square project, the Constance Lee project, and to the best of my recollection, there were little tiny things that needed to be done on a punch list, and the town crews ended up doing them. I'm hoping that somebody's keeping an eye on these projects and making sure that the town doesn't end up doing the tie-ups to the loose ends. I thought that there was a master plan when they were doing Market Square, that the next phase was going to be to do something to make the traffic flow better in where the Webster Bank is, but I could be mistaken on that. I've been pushing for a while to see if there's any monies available for the Small Cities Housing Rehab Grant. Last I knew, we had about $80,000 left in that particular grant. It's being administered by a independent contractor. I'm hoping that when people are cited for blight, that they're also being given some direction perhaps to apply for some monies. It's low interest or no interest, and you don't have to pay it off until you sell the house, and it does have income guidelines, I believe. As far as CIP, well, that's near and dear to my heart, and you all are on the same page finally, understanding that you really don't understand what it's for. I will once again appeal to you to either speak to Tom Bowen or anyone else that was on the original committee, see what the original intent was, and bring it up to date to what we want it to be as a whole, not just what the Republicans want or the Democrats want, what we need for the town of Newington to make it flow better. I do wish that the town council meetings were verbatim so I could go back and see what the original intent was. Sometimes it loses in the translation from person to person, especially during budget time. Maybe something that's going to be expensive to do, but I think verbatim, like town planning and zoning, would be something to consider. As for the town hall, I'm not surprised at all at what I'm hearing tonight, having followed it since 2012. Mady and I both sat and asked for communication, and it was obvious sitting there watching what was going on that the meetings that were being held outside of the committee, even committee members weren't privy to what was being said. We asked that department heads come and say that they were on board with what we were being told they were on board with. And this doesn't go just back to the previous town manager, it goes back to the one before that. So that being said, let's stop pointing fingers, let's get the project done, and I'm not saying to let things slide. Let's make sure that they're right when we go in there. But there's plenty of blame to go around in this whole project. You can probably blame me, too, for not being more vocal and not getting onto Facebook like some other people do. But in any case, thank you very much for your time. Stay well, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I don't see any other hands up. Any remarks by counselors? Just one thought. I'm still processing our earlier conversation regarding the town hall. Keith, if you could ask if there's going to be any like mold testing, or is it too soon for that? But I'm just concerned if there was water in that building and it wasn't adequately handled, to make sure that we're doing mold testing at some point when it makes sense to do that.
I sure will. Yeah, we'll get that set up. I got to expect that there is going to be some issues with that, but we'll see.
Okay, we got to make sure we keep our people safe. So whatever we need to do to follow up on that. Counselor Minor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real quick, I know that initially there was testing done and there would be follow-up testing done traditionally, and I would expect there to be additional testing at this point to confirm that there's no additional moisture in there. That's the last thing we want to do, is have anything trapped anywhere.
Right. Thank you. I don't see any other council hands up, so we will move on to our next item is two executive sessions. The first one is for personnel issues regarding town staffing levels. The second one is a real estate issue. I believe there will be a motion coming onto our screen. Councilors, you received while we were in this meeting, I believe, a link to the executive session, just so you know where to head after we get out of here. Who can go ahead and read that motion for me, please? Councilor Ennis?
Sure. Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200, Paren 6, Paren A, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, and Keith Chapman, town manager, to discuss a personnel issue, town staffing levels.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, was that you, Councilor Menke?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in, well, roll call vote. We might as well stick to roll call. Sorry, guys.
Counselor Annis?
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
All right, we are heading into executive session. It is 9:24. Folks, we'll take a 5-minute and I'll meet you in there. Is that good?
Sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
Heads nodding. All right, I'll see you in there. Thank you, everyone.
One.
Okay, we're back in regular session at 10:04. I'll now entertain a resolution to go back into executive session for the purpose of a real estate matter. Counselor Mankey?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 1-200 6D, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, and Keith Chapman, town manager, to discuss a real estate matter.
Second. Seconded by Counselor Annis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes unanimously. We stand adjourned at an executive, well, not adjourned, but in executive session at 10:05. We will now be invited to go into the other breakout room for said executive. Okay, so we're back from executive session at 10:59 PM. Our next item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Council Maggie, seconded by Council Camillo. Any other discussion for the good of the order? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and we stand adjourned at 11 PM. Thank you, everybody, for a long evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night.
Aye.